Welcome to Fairy Escape Atlanta.
Can I just put in a plug for those of us who write about elves and fairies as if they're incomprehensible? It's especially nice for me to hear that from a gamer, because I kind of have a squinty against gaming, because gaming happened after I was like out of high school, so I missed it. And as a result, I just haven't grown up in that culture, and I don't know the fine points. But I did see that there was an awful lot in the early days of making magic as much like science as possible, and making it all explicable and analyzable. So,
Yeah,
so
there's
go
some games
you
that
and
do
God
that.
bless.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying like gaming is evil, but it's really nice to hear you saying that about this, because my belief as somebody who grew up reading fantasy and reading myth is that you don't understand them, and you're not meant to understand them, because it's magic, and magic is not explainable. And it's not codifiable, and in fact the attempts to master magic are all about trying to codify it, and it's really, really hard and very nearly impossible depending on which author is writing. So I guess I hadn't realized this till now, that the whole part of what I like about the fairy world is that we all kind of get that in a way that other people who love fantasy, they're in a different part of the forest, and often they like it to be, in little, bite-sized nuggets of understandable and science-like graphingness thing. You were trying to say something, Eugene. Sorry.
I was just saying that I thought it was really interesting and refreshing to hear about a character that was actually, that he wanted to be the one. I mean, because it's such a common element in fiction where you have a character who, after he finds out that he is like special, that he is, sad and depressed, and he really wants to be normal. And throughout my childhood, I was like, why? Why would you want to be normal?
There was a
But what are you? But I mean, at the same time, growing up as in the Midwest, I wanted to be like my classmates who were white and blonde, and it was so hard being different. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now a little bit. but I mean, it's so refreshing to hear about a character who actually wants to be special, who wants to be an individual.
Well, it's funny, because if you grow up in any way different, you kind of have two choices. And one is to be desperately trying to be as much like everybody else as possible, and you either failing or coming close to failing, or say, this is not going to happen, so what can I do to make myself, at that age, better, in some way.
there's a TV show, Heroes, about people who all of a sudden get these superhero powers, and one of the characters was this cheerleader who finds she's basically got Wolverine's powers. She can heal. She drop herself off a bridge and come right back. And she spent the first 3-4 episodes complaining and whining about this.
Buffy also takes a long time.
Gratuitous
That's a Buffy thing. Buffy takes a long time to accept that thing.
Such angst, such
It's like, where is it
pointless
coming
angst,
from?
yeah. Oh, I'm a vampire. I can live forever and be beautiful and strong. I don't get
Yes,
it.
but you don't have a pulse.
No. And I shine and glitter in the sunlight. Oh,
That's different. No, you don't. You do not shine and glitter in the sunlight. You don't. None of that now. None of that.
Yeah, the other is always killed by the regular people. That's why you don't want to be different. I mean, some of us
How true.
were raised in cultures where they white
dangerous.
out because we were different and know this.
Yep.
And maybe in this culture it's okay. And that's what's really unusual, is that the police, the thought police are not after us yet.
When you're 10, the thought police are after you. A lot.
That's the kidnapping part.
Yeah, right. No, I mean in amongst your peers. It's a sort of 12, 13 is a dangerous time to be different.
Well, one of the things that I was that when I came to write the second book, I realized that I had stranded my changeling in a world where there was nobody like her, and that this was probably not the case. I have posited a New York that's divided into neighborhoods, each one of which
Strangely like the real New York.
strangely like the real New York, each one of which is under the rule of a genius, of a genius locus, actually genius loci, I know that much Latin, who is who really rules their blocks. And they have, because it's a very small island, they have necessarily had to have some dealings with each other, and they don't play nicely together. They do not know how to compromise. They don't know how to do anything interpersonally except, kill. So this is actually what the Irish fairies needed human beings in order to have a battle, because there needed to be mortality on the field in order for anybody to die. And they also needed human beings to create things, because they could not themselves create. All they could do was enjoy the creations of others. So what I said was that these children, that all of these mortal children have been taken into the fairy world so that they can be the diplomats among all the geniuses and all the fairy folk. And there is a school that they all go to while they're growing up in order to learn how not to be killed by the fairy. They don't learn magic, they learn how to be around people who are magic without getting squished. But they're also the only human beings they know. They are the only mortals they know, and it's high school. Well, actually, it's grade school. I mean, it's
Middle school.
Just,
It's
no,
middle school.
But basically, it's just school, because you are not put in a class by age, because age doesn't mean anything to fairies. They don't know from age. They put you in the class depending on what you know about. So they test you, and what you're really good at, you don't have to do, and what you don't know about, you've got to take classes in. And it doesn't matter whether you're 6 or whether you're 14 or whether you're 45. Until you pass that class, you are in it. and they
Much like you in Latin.
Yes, well, yeah, except I didn't bother to pass it. Eventually, they had to graduate me anyway. And I had so much fun trying to figure out how the fairies would negotiate this, and how the kids and would negotiate their relationships with each other when their normal was fairy. And it was just a lot of fun.
I've just had this giant thought based on partly what Larissa said about being immigrants. Because I am certainly, one of the great things in my life is that I'm very conscious of being the children of immigrants. 3 of my grandparents had accents, and one of them came from Canada, and her parents had accents. And this was very true for my generation, my parents' generation, and now it's a different groups of people, but I think like you've got a real consciousness of that.
Yeah.
You've got a real consciousness of that. And yesterday we had that lovely panel, with Ari and Charles and everybody, where Ari's talking about, and Nora wanted us to go into, fairies belong to the land, and they're land spirits, and Americans, everybody comes here, but they can't really connect to the land, And I think the fact is that that's true. And certainly as a Jew, where we haven't had any land for 2,000 years, and now we're making an experiment to have one, and it's kind of a fuck up. But seriously, I'm very conscious of myself as belonging to a people with no land, and who were not welcome in any of the lands that we lived in, even if we lived in them for 500 years. That we were told, and often we were not legally allowed to own land. I mean, really not legally allowed to own it, which is why there were a lot of Jewish people in cities and involved in money lending and things where you didn't have to have any land. And so and the romance for Jews is the romance of the lost land, that we lost because the Romans put salt on it 2,000 years ago. So there's not a lot of fairy and spirit magic with us, except for if you've read Isaac Singer, the threatening, kind that exists in every folk culture. But here we are in America, and I don't think it's entirely coincidental that there are a lot of Jews and a lot of children of, conscious children of immigrants who are very drawn to fantasy and fairyland, because it's not the land that belongs to anybody. The world of fantasy is the world of literature. You know, that Tolkien, even though it's English and it made us all want to be English, is also bookland, and bookland belongs to everybody.